You are listening to I Survived the Wild Outdoors podcast, where real outdoors men and women share their heroic tales of survival. I'm your host, Brad Mathewson, and this is their story. Hello, everyone. My guest today is Jeff Braaksma from Randolph, Wisconsin. A lifelong bow hunter, after battling neck and shoulder injuries, made the switch to a crossbow. Like many others, Jeff ordered his crossbow online, not fully realizing just how different it would be from the vertical bow he was used to. What followed was a painful lesson in product design, safety, and the realities of transitioning to unfamiliar equipment. While practicing alone in his backyard, Jeff suffered a severe hand injury that would change the way he, and hopefully others, think about crossbow safety. But this wasn't just user error. It was a preventable accident caused by a lack of safety information and a design flaw. And unfortunately, Jeff learned the hard way. This episode just isn't about one man's accident. It's about accountability, awareness, and the importance of thoughtful design in hunting equipment. Now, let's get into it. Hello, Jeff.
Hi.
Can you tell me about your story?
Well, how far back can we go? I've been hunting my whole life. 61 years old, been bow hunting since I was able to at 12 years old. Had a lot of old recurve bows and a lot of different compound bows over the years. And whole family was into hunting. 3 older brothers and dad, all hunting and fishing. We had a awesome upbringing here in central Wisconsin, Randolph, Wisconsin. Famous for Jung Seed Company, if anybody's in the gardening world, but that's centered out of Randolph, Wisconsin. But my mom and dad had a piece of land on the edge of Randolph that did some hunting on, a lot of pheasant, a lot of bow hunting and stuff. And as I progressed my years of hunting, started letting a lot of little stuff go and started shooting some really good bucks. And unfortunately, as I got older, I had a real major neck surgery with some vertebrae fused together, and also a real serious back injury, and some other issues that got to where I couldn't pull my compound bow back to where I liked it anymore. I was shooting a high country archery bow that I loved and had it for years, never felt the need to get anything new or fancier, shot a lot of nice deer with it. And but I got to the point where I was having stinging feelings going down my arm before these surgeries, and post surgeries, I lost a lot of strength in my right arm, which took away the ability to pull my bow back. I had it cranked all the way up at like 73 pounds, I think they said it was, at the archery place when they put a tester on it. And I got to the point where I had to turn the bow down a lot, so I don't even know what it was down to, but the last really nice buck I shot, I think it was 3 years ago. It was a perfect broadside shot into one side of the ribs, and the arrow did not even come out the other side at all. I killed the deer. It was a great buck, but I realized that just wasn't right. And as I came into the next deer season, I thought, I'm going to probably have to bite the bullet and look at crossbows. I never was into crossbows. I always figured that, the compound bow was way more of a challenge, and that suited me way better. I didn't care if people wanted to use a crossbow, but it just didn't really seem like bow hunting to me with some of the distances they were shooting deer with these things. And they're an amazing killing machine, but it just wasn't my thing. So I decided to buy one, and I bought nothing fancy. It was a Barnett Whitetail STR, whatever it is, nice bow. Got it home, put it together. Deer season was only a few weeks away. I kind of held off till the very end because I didn't want to have to do this, but having my compound out and trying to shoot it, I just realized there was nothing else I could do. I was going to have to get a crossbow. But I was out in my yard one day, and I had my John Deere Gator parked in the driveway, and I took some old blankets and stuff and threw them in the back of there. I was going to try to find some sort of rest where I could shoot this bow. I bought a new target because you need a different target, of course, for a crossbow versus a compound. So I set that up at about 12 yards, and I got the bow out and cocked it, which was just cocking that that thing. You realize how powerful and how strong these things are. And I put a bolt in, super careful, making sure that I had that safety on. I didn't want my fingers anywhere near these strings or anything. I was honestly quite intimidated to shoot the thing, but I did a standing shot first. I think it was about 12 yards, and I leaned my back up against my gaiter kind of to steady myself, and I grabbed the forestock or whatever you want to call it on the front of your bow, like grabbing the stock of a rifle, and I gripped it with my thumb and my fingers, and I put the crosshairs on the target and slipped the safety off and squeezed one off as smoothly as I could, and poof! It put that thing in the target. I was even surprised at how fast it shot that bolt, and I hit pretty accurate. I thought, wow, the sight is pretty close already. So I grabbed another one and picked a different spot on the target. I don't want to shoot bolts into each other, so I cocked it again, fired up another one, shot it, hit pretty close to where I was aiming, a little bit high and right if I remember correctly. And I grabbed a third bolt, and I did the same thing in another different area of the target, and they all seemed to be consistently a little high and to the right. So I thought, I need to lay this thing down on these blankets and lean on my gaiter and get a nice sturdy rest, and get out my tools to adjust the scope and try to get it dialed in. It was almost a little bit exciting now to have this crossbow, because I realized how easy it was going to be to shoot a deer with this thing. And like I said, I got my tools out and I took the caps off the scope so I could do some adjusting, and I cocked it again, put another bolt in, and I got the blankets all mounted up on the back corner of the gaiter, and I stood by the tailgate and bent over and leaned over it and laid the bow, the forestock of the bow in my hand, not realizing that I was no longer gripping the forestock, and my fingers were pointed, of course, to the right underneath the stock, and my thumb was sticking straight up in the air like I was hitchhiking, and I had my hand spread wide. And although the bow's got the little fins that are supposed to be the guard to keep your fingers from going up, when your hand's laid out flat, I mean, I'm 6'4", 250 pounds, so my fingers were way wider than what any of them guards were, and I got a really good rest. And I'm looking through the scope, so of course you're not paying any attention to your fingers. I saw the little hand thing on my bow with a little yellow hand with a red thumb saying, watch your thumb. But without knowing what could really happen or having seen this happen to anybody, I didn't put enough stock into it, I guess. So I got on the blankets, and I had the bow laid out nice, and I put the crosshairs right in the dead center. And I squeezed the trigger, and instantly, bam, it hit my thumb, and I dropped the bow on the blankets right away. I was like, oh, and I looked at my hand, and I don't get freaked out by blood too much, and I'm not one that gets weird about all this stuff. But when I looked at my thumb and realized half of the side from the nail to the end, most of the nail and part of the bone and stuff was sticking out, and the tip of the finger was gone, and not just a little skin tag off the end. It was a hunk of finger. It ripped the fingernail out by the roots. There was a little strip of fingernail left. It took the right side of my thumb off because the string hit it at an angle. It launched that piece of meat somewhere, which I never did find out where that went, or I might have tried having them reattach it. But the bone with that tip of finger, the tip of the bone was also broke off and gone with the tip of the finger. And the other piece of bone in my hand yet was broke, but it was still in place in the meat that was left there. So I just looked at it, and for a second, you're just in shock. Like if you broke an arm or broke a leg and you look at it, seeing they're bent, it was just like, I couldn't believe it. I'm home alone. My wife had just, she was actually down in Florida, had just got on a cruise ship. Her sister took her on a cruise, so they were just getting on the boat. So I was taking some time to sight this bow in and do some other stuff while I was alone here. And it started to bleed profusely immediately. Blood ran down my arm and flying all over the place. So I whipped off this T-shirt I had on and wrapped it around the thumb, which of course is throbbing. And I wrapped it around my hand and around my fingers, and then gripped it all as one ball, and grabbed my cell phone and dialed my daughter, who lives right down the road from me. And she answered, and I'm like, "Are you home?" And she's like, "Yeah, what's the matter?" And I'm like, "I just shot the end of my thumb off with the crossbow." And she's like, "Oh my God." I said, "I got to go to the emergency room right now." So she got in the car. I ran in the house and put another shirt on because I had taken my shirt off to wrap around my hand. And she came, and we got in the car. And fortunately, the hospital is about probably less than 15 minutes from my house. So we're flying down the back roads to get there. And she goes, "How bad is it? Did you tear your whole thumb off?" And I'm like, "No, it's just like the end. It's a big part of the end with the fingernails about tore off." And she goes, "Can I see it?" And I kind of unwrapped the shirt off of my thing, and then finally got it all unwrapped and exposed the thumb. And she's like, "Oh my God." And I'm like, "I know." And I quick wrapped it up again because it started to bleed. And she says, "You want me to call Ryan," her husband, "and you want him to go over there and look for it? They're going to probably want to sew that back on." And I said, "I have no idea where it could have possibly gone. And not only that, I live out in the country here. I got a 1/4-mile long driveway back into the woods. I have a bunch of chickens that were free range and all around me while I did that. And as gross as it sounds, I guarantee wherever that thing landed, they found it, they ate it. And chickens will eat anything." But so we didn't bother looking for the fingertip. We got the emergency room. And the one thing that surprised me when we came in, they asked what's going on. I told them I just cut a big hunk of the end of my thumb off with a string from my crossbow. And she goes, "Okay, we'll get you in right away." And I said, "You ever seen that before?" And 2 of the 3 nurses looked at me and started nodding their head. "Oh yeah," they said. So it was not uncommon to them. They've seen it before. So we got into the emergency room, into one of the rooms, and the doctor came and looked it over, and they're just like, "Oh, jeepers." And they did an X-ray, and they saw that the bone was broken there. But they said, "Well, the finger is like laid way open, but we can like pull that back together with a little bit of skin you got, and then we'll suture the skin, but you can't suture where just the meat was at the end of the thumb because it was just gone." So they said, "We'll sew that, and that'll keep that bone in there, and that bone should fuse back to the bone that it's supposed to be connected to. The one tip of the thumb bone is already gone, but most of it was still there." And they did that, and fairly painful. The follow-up, I had to change dressings on this thing for forever. It eventually, the tip of the finger kind of rounded off again, which really amazed me. And even like to the looking at it now, it's like there's like a fingerprint on the end, which you'd think there would still be this ragged, no end of the finger, but the thumbnail grew back for the most part. It's really thick. It's like thicker than my other thumbnail for some reason. But the end of the finger is dead. If you're trying to button a dress shirt or something, or sometimes lacing your shoes or anything where you're trying to grab a piece of tape to peel off with your thumb and forefinger on that hand, you just can't. I'm always switching hands to do it with my other hand. But other than that, it's not a big problem anymore. Other than being dead, it feels like it was frozen or something, and it just never came back. And they told me that the receptors for your feelings are on the very tip of your fingers, and once they're gone, they don't grow back. So it's been a nuisance. I did end up hunting the rest of that year with the bow. I never shot at anything. When I gripped the bow going forward, I changed the entire way that I held the bow. The forestock there has like a slot in it, which is big enough to stick your fingers in. So what I would do is take my left hand. So I'm pulling the trigger with my right hand, and I will take my hand and put the palm down, and I will stick my 4 fingers through that slot, and then my thumb underneath and grip it that way. So all the fingers are pointing down. There's no way they can point up. And I never saw a buck I wanted to shoot that year. I saw some that I let go, but that was the only year I hunted with it, and I was able to build up some of my strength again last year, and got my compound out again, hoping that I could possibly shoot it again. And it turns out that my strength had come back pretty good, so I was able to crank my crossbow or my compound back up to where I used to have it, and hunted last year with my regular bow again. I've kept this thing here because someday I suppose I may be old enough or have enough serious injuries or power loss where I will have to use the crossbow again. But for now, I'm back to my compound. But when I showed it to people, they like couldn't believe it. And the more people I talked to about it, the people that would come out of the woodwork showing me their thumb or showing me a picture of somebody else's thumb or something else that had the same thing. Most of them were just a little nip where it got the tip of it or something. But it's so easy for this to happen with a guard or not on the bow. If you don't have your fingers gripping the bow and you have your hand laid flat, especially like when I was trying to sight it in, I could see how it could happen. I took the bow, my daughter and I, we got home that day and I picked the bow up again, and it was like even weird to put it in my hands again. I didn't even want to touch the stupid thing. But when I showed her what I was doing and how I laid the bow in the back of the gator and laid that hand open and then put my eye back by the scope or put my head down to where you're sighting, and you could see right away that my thumb was probably nearly a full inch above the string line. Fortunately, my thumb wasn't sticking straight up, so it's kind of canted forward when you pull the trigger. So it hit it at an angle and just tore part of the side, the nail, and the end of it off. But if it had been more square up, or if it would have caught it at the joint, square on the joint, it would have taken the whole end of the finger and the nail and everything off. So they are a powerful instrument. I think it probably shoots an arrow, 475 feet a second or something. So it's definitely something that was stupid. I don't blame the company or anything. They have warnings there. I wish they would have had a picture similar to my thumb in the package when you open it up, because that's something when you see it once, you don't forget it. But that little yellow hand with the red thumb, that's something that happens to other people, I guess. And I didn't put any stock in it at all and didn't worry about it and paid the price for it. But I do a lot of preaching to people now who I know shoot the things or who are contemplating it, and I make sure that I give them my little sermon about what happened to me, and hopefully it saves somebody else from having the same thing happen to them.
So that day, Jeff, when you were looking through your crossbow scope and you're sighting in your crossbow, could you see your hand at all? Holding? No, couldn't see it at all. So you couldn't even see that thumb or was sticking up above the rail.
Nope. It is something like when I recreated it later and I got my head down there and looked through the scope, and then I pulled my eye back just a little bit and looked to the left, and that's where I could see my thumb way above where the string line would be. And it probably wouldn't happen if you're grabbing the bow like you would grab the forestock on a rifle. But when I laid that hand wide open on them blankets to get that nice, soft, steady base, that's when my thumb was sticking up like I was hitchhiking. And you look at it, and so I can see how it could happen. I think the bow company should have a wider thing that maybe sticks out 3.5 inches on each side. It could just be lightweight plastic, so it's not going to add weight. And when you bring your limbs back, when you cock it and bring the limbs back, no matter if you have those things sticking out on each side, the limbs are still going to be wider than that, so they're not going to be in the way of anything or be an inconvenience in the stand or in the tree or anything. So personally, I'm sure a lot of companies have had issues with injuries like this, and I'm sure there's people that have sued them or gone after them for it. But I think it would be a really good fix if the companies just put wider guards. So if my hand was even laid flat, my thumb would still be hitting that thing, and you realize, oh, okay, I can't get my thumb out that far.
Yep.
But I don't know. I never really messed with crossbows in my life. Never had an interest in it really until I was in a position where I was either quit bow hunting or get a crossbow. So that's what I did. But I wish there was more people that I could talk to that had this happen to them or just hear their experiences. But some of the stuff online, I've shared some things on some different sites where people talked about it. But
would you agree that like maybe a major part of crossbow injuries is because, unlike the compound bow or recurve bow or long bow, whatever, in order to become proficient with it, you got to do a lot of practice. So You're leading up to, let's say, bow season, which is in the fall. Typically here in Wisconsin in September. So you start shooting, some guys shoot year round. Some guys don't even start till, midsummer, beginning of summer. But you're shooting that bow every single day to become proficient with it. So when time comes, all of a sudden, I'm shooting really good. I can put all my arrows in a pie plate, let's say. Now with a crossbow, there's probably very few people that do that. You can literally take the crossbow out of your basement, cock it, climb up a tree, and you're hunting that day without even practicing with it. You really can.
Pretty much.
And I think because you're not as familiar with it, there's certain safety aspects that people kind of overlook or don't think of. And the other thing, it's relatively new. I want to say relatively new. I mean, obviously crossbows go back to medieval times, but as far as the general public in buying these in big box stores and that, it's only been like 15 years that crossbows have been, really out there and people have really been buying them. So it's not something that people are really familiar with. So I think that's probably a major part of injuries is, and like you said, you're intimidated the first time you had it. I remember the first time I shot a crossbow. I had similar incident. I had a lot of bow hunting for 30 plus years, and I've had a lot of shoulder issues. And I remember buying my first crossbow, and you just go to the big box store, you buy the crossbow. There's no one to talk to. I didn't know what the heck I was doing.
Yep.
Pulled it back, and like you said, pull it back. Like, man, this thing's got a lot of power. It took a lot of force to get pulled back. And then you try to load the bolt up. It's very intimidating, and there's no real instruction on this thing. It's just like, here you go. Here's this dangerous weapon. Good luck. And it was just like a very intimidating experience. And I think a lot of people out there just, I don't want to say complacent, but you just don't know what you don't know. Because it's not a familiar weapon.
Yeah, you're shooting your crossbow or even your recurve or anything, and you might whack your forearm with a string, and you'll learn that lesson or whatever. But I'd like to say you shoot these things a lot. I mean, this happened to me probably on I think it was the fourth shot. I shot the 3 shots and realized it's pretty accurate. It's just not dialed in. So the fourth shot is when it happened. I talked to one hunter who he saw my picture and he's like, oh geez, mine wasn't that bad. I took a little cap off the end of my thumb. And, but he said, I shot my bow, quite a bit, but he said his happened when he was in the tree with a deer under him, and he got all wound up and he held his bow different. He said, so I don't know what I did different, but I must've got a hold of the bow different. I must've been focused on the deer and put my hand higher, did something different. So that was one of the reasons when I realized I was going to still shoot with this thing, even though I just hurt myself with it, is when I started to rotate my hand with the palm down and I slid them. I don't know if all the bows have like a slot in there where you could actually do that, but this one did. And I'd slide my fingers in pointing down and my thumb would go underneath. There was no way my thumb, if I have a deer, a big buck, come out, and I don't get too nervous about that stuff anymore, but there would be like little or no chance that I could possibly hold it different because I'm nervous or something, because I always made sure I gripped it a different way now, which probably is smart. It didn't affect my shooting at all. It wasn't like harder to hold that way or anything really, but yeah, I would probably say that most guys don't shoot them a lot. I know a guy that shot a buck at over 100 yards with one of them, and he had a real expensive one, spent thousands of dollars on it, and I'd never shoot a deer that far with a bow. I don't care what it is, but he shot his at over 100 yards with it. He goes, I can hit this thing with a good rest, no problem at 100 yards every time. Wow. Which is, I don't want to do that. I shouldn't say I'm a former taxidermist. I'm still a taxidermist, I guess. I just don't have a studio anymore. And I have a little deer farm, a few tame whitetails that I got when I was a taxidermist from another guy who had a little deer farm next town over from me. So I got a couple fawns and bottle fed them and put up a fence. It was awesome. Customers could come and see him and come pet my bucks and stuff. And I lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
I forget where I was going with that, but
so let me ask you this, Jeff. So what was your first thought immediately after it happened? So right after it happened, what was your first thought?
It was shock instantly, because when it hit, I mean, that hurts. It's like putting your thumb on a chopping block and taking the end of it off with an axe. That's what it feels like. And when it happened, just like wham. And I should say too, which really surprised me, I got back when my daughter was coming to pick me up. Even though this was happening and I had to get to the emergency room, I had to go out and look, see where the arrow hit. And the arrow hit the same spot. The arrow the arrow, after taking the end of my finger off, still put the arrow in the target virtually in the same spot the other three had gone. But when you first looked at it, it was shock, because you look and I've had that thumb my whole life, and now a big hunk of the end of it's gone. And it just, like, you looked at it and it's like you can't believe it. And then, then it was, I got to do something. So that's when I tore my shirt off and started trying to stop the blood and get on the phone and get her over here and get me. So it was shock. There are people that don't like to look at the picture, and there's some people, I'm sure, that would have put them to their knees just because they don't like to see blood or seeing part of your body ripped off. If the right person would have probably fainted, but it was a shock would be the only word I could say. It's something I never forget. Every time I picked that bow up after that, every shot, everything, I completely was focused on that safety being on, first of all, because the power with that bolt, you don't want to put a bolt in, start moving the bow around, and all of a sudden you hit the trigger. God knows where that thing could go.
Yep.
So it was always the safety. I was always really cautious with the safety the first few times I shot it, but after that it was safety first, and then before I put my hand anywhere near the front of the bow, I made sure I knew where my fingers were, and it was never going to happen again. That's for sure.
So, do you still shoot the crossbow at all, or is that ship kind of sailed now?
I shot it. Well, I shot it that year. The rest of that year, never shot at a deer, like I said. But
you did target shoot a little bit. You're saying afterward.
I target shot it afterwards again, and you have to shoot it, to get your, to uncock the bow. I had, I would shoot I'd shoot it to uncock it when I was done hunting. I have the luxury of having 30 acres of my own here, where I can hunt, and I've shot a few nice bucks here, and I got a public hunting ground fairly close to me too that I've shot a couple of really big bucks on, and I can walk up to the house with my bow and uncock by shooting at the target again. I don't have to worry about putting it in a car and stuff like that unless I'm going to the public. But I never really shot. I shot it a couple more times that year just to make sure, that it was still on, because I didn't have any experience with a crossbow before. But when I got this last summer before last season, and I got my compound out again, because I could just feel like my arm was coming back, and when I was able to start shooting it and gradually turn it up, and I got it back to the full 73 pounds, and I haven't touched the crossbow since. I figure I'm going to keep it because someday I might need it, or maybe I'll have a family member or something. I have three older brothers. My brothers are all quite a bit older than me. They're all in their 70s, and maybe they're all hunters, and maybe one of the days they want to use it or something. So I hung on to it.
So did it kind of do, you were explaining on the end of your fingers, the nerve damage in that. I mean, has it changed the way you grip stuff now, as far as when you're bow hunting with the bow? I know for that season you're telling me you're changing your hand grip, but is that still a thing, or?
Well, that was with the
that was with the crossbow. That's right, with the crossbow.
Yeah, but with the regular bow, just grabbing the hand grip on a regular compound bow, the thumb has no effect. There's nothing sensitive with the thumb. The thumb now, the biggest issue is little things like trying to pick up a screw off the ground or something. With that thumb, it's like you don't feel it, or button in a shirt. But it's not something where I walk around all day thinking about this thumb injury. But there are just times when you use your thumb and you realize it's an inconvenience. But yeah, they said they could have when I went to I sent to a specialist in Madison, a hand specialist, and when he looked at it, he's seen a few of them too. He said, I've seen them worse and I've seen them way better. But he said, we can take skin from a different part of the body and graft it on there and this and that. And he goes, it's really not it's going to be more cosmetic than anything. And he said, you're not going to get that feeling back. You tore off the sensors off the end of the thumb.
Yep.
The whole tip of it. You saw the picture,
Oh yeah. It was, it didn't look good.
No, it was nasty. But yeah.
So if you'd want to leave the listeners with some parting advice on your experience, what would that be?
Well, talk to other crossbow guys. Number one, I hadn't really talked to anybody. I knew some guys that shot crossbows, but I never really talked to them about it because I just wasn't into the crossbow thing. And I ended up ordering my bow online. I even forget where I got it from, but I ordered online because I kind of wanted to get one here because I knew season was getting close, and I wasn't going to be able to shoot my compound. So I didn't even have a salesperson or anybody to talk to me. I generally prefer to go to a store and give the local stores the business, but that time I didn't. And you got to familiarize yourself with it, of course, and when that bow is uncocked, I would be pretending you're shooting it and looking where your hands are. And I would have that bow uncocked, and I would open that hand up and lay it like that, and put your thumb up in the line of the string where the string would be, and just get your head there and look. And a lot of people would probably be like, wow, it doesn't take much to get that hand rotated up enough to be on there. And I think hunters maybe do that when they're in the woods. They may have target shot with the bow and then got in the woods, and all of a sudden there's the buck, and they do something different with their hand to make a better shot or something. They don't realize they're holding their thumb in a different position. Maybe their stand has got some sort of rest, that they're laying the bow over the front. Like some stands with a gun, you'll have a place to lay your gun. Yep. And maybe when they were target shooting with it, they don't ever do that. And now they do it different, and they open their hand like I did. So I would be practicing with that bow in your stand, pointing it in directions, and see what you're doing with your hand, and see if you're bending around the tree to try to shoot this way or that way. Did you just move your hand now because you're for balance or anything else? Because I don't know if it would be interesting to know, of all the people that have had this injury, how many had happened on the first shot, or how many had happened 2 years later. That would really be interesting to know. So
yeah, that would be.
But
yeah, we just don't have
a statistic for that.
No, we don't. I kind of looked into it, and we don't have there's no such, well, maybe there is, but that I haven't really heard of, but there's no such thing as local crossbow clubs around here that I know of here in Wisconsin, or I don't really know. I should do some research on that and see what there is across the United States. But, there's tons of archery shops where you can go in and buy your bow and shoot, and you got a tech there watching you, and you can kind of correct mistakes, but or you shoot with a bunch of other guys at, tournaments and that, and you can kind of help each other. But as far as I know, there isn't anything really mainstream. I mean, someone might message me and, there's a club in such and such, sure, there might be one or two, but yeah, it isn't as mainstream is what bow hunting is, with bows and recurves and stuff. And like I said, people really haven't been doing this. I did a little research, and there's about 5.5 million people in the United States own crossbows. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, there just isn't a lot of safety information on crossbows. And people might say, well, you just don't do dumb things. Well, things happen really fast, but it's up to the manufacturers also to design these crossbows. So, it makes it harder for things like this to happen. And even nowadays, I have a 10-point sitting in my basement. I'm looking at it, and yeah, if you're a bigger guy, I can really see this happen with the bigger hands like that. Yeah, it could happen. There still isn't a wide enough protection on that rail.
Yep, I would definitely have it.
Yeah, I like that plate idea.
Each side.
The plate idea you had with plastic would be great.
Really?
No,
I don't think it would add cost. I don't think it would add weight. It would just keep it where you just could not get your hand up there. It's save a lot of problems and all. I was tempted to write the company or go online and send an email showing what happened and just saying, look, these things aren't wide enough. I'm not taking you to court. I'm not doing this and that. You have warnings on there saying watch your thumb, but until you whack your end of your thumb off, it's hard to heed that when you think it's not going to happen. But it could be preventable, in my opinion. But that's going to come from the manufacturers. And as I said, I'm not throwing daggers at Barnett, because I've looked at other bows too, and I don't think any of them have wide enough things flared out there to keep your fingers out of the way. But so I don't know.
No, I definitely agree with that for sure. Well, thank you, Jeff. As we wrap up today's conversation with Jeff Braaksma, his story is a powerful reminder that not all accidents in the outdoors are simply user error. Sometimes they're the result of preventable design flaws and the lack of proper safety education. Jeff's injury wasn't just an isolated incident. It's one of many. A quick scroll through online forums and hunting groups reveals a troubling number of crossbow users with nearly identical stories. Missing thumbs and fingers and bones shattered, and lives changed in an instant. And many of these could have been avoided with better manufacturer safeguards like wider thumb guards
and more upfront safety information. Since crossbows started gaining popularity around 2010, we've seen their use explode. Today, there are an estimated 5.5 million crossbow owners in the United States alone. That's a huge number, and it highlights just how important it is for the industry to evolve alongside that growth. This is still new ground for a lot of new hunters. Our fathers and grandfathers didn't grow up using crossbows, which means we don't have decades of passed down experience to lean on. That makes education, training, and good design more critical than ever. If you're considering a crossbow, especially if you're new to them, don't just buy one online and figure it out yourself. Go to a reputable bow shop. Talk to a pro. Learn how to use it safely. Crossbows can be an incredibly fun and effective tool, whether you're target shooting or hunting. But like any weapon, they demand respect and they deserve thoughtful use. And to the manufacturers out there, it's time to step up. Hunters deserve better protection, clearer warnings, and designs that account for real-world use. Safety should never be optional. Thank you for listening, and as always, stay safe out there and enjoy all that Mother Nature has to offer. If you like what you heard today, click the subscribe button to hear more upcoming stories. If you or someone you know have a survival story you'd like to share, contact me at isurvivethewildoutdoors@gmail.com.